Hi, my name is PK Beats, and I do things. Anyways, Hope Tasser on Twitter showed off something funny with Samus and Fox, and actually, it's probably just easier to watch that. It's funnier that way.
It's go time! Start mark! Fire at will!
See, normally when this type of Final Smash activates, your character gets sent way high up, presumably to get the idea across that, I don't know, you're being sent to space. However, if you activate it on the same frame that Samus's bomb blows up on her, that sort of overrides the hit stun of the Final Smash activation, letting you move during this initial knockback. Now, when you spam jump and stuff during this initial hit, it's not like it increases your height and that's what KOs you. You can already tell that you get sent extremely high from the normal initial hit after all. Rather, it's that by overriding the Final Smash hit with your own bomb lay, I guess the game loses whatever system it had in place preventing you from being KO'd by the top blast zone like you normally would be, and thus it allows it to actually take away your stock now. And also, I guess the game's coded to just have you get launched after the Final Smash anyways and can't really comprehend the attack starting up with no one actually caught in it. If you're wondering, you've actually got a lot of time where you can act after this hit, where you're in this zombie state before the game can correct itself. And also, your charge beam status is kept the same too, even though you've lost your stock and it should technically be reset, which is also really interesting. But if your percent is high enough when this happens, not only will the momentum of the initial hit KO you as usual, but the final hit will also KO you, resulting in a 2-for-1. Yes, this carries over to stocks just fine and will result in you losing 2 stocks to 1 Final Smash. Testing this in a real match is really hard since it takes a while to get each attempt set up and this is frame perfect, and I am not a TAS. But the clip in the tweet does confirm that this is how it works in a real match, so let's just go with that. Now, there's probably plenty of other stupid consequences to the concept of this glitch, but I'm just gonna leave the testing there for today since this was kind of a last-minute addition anyways. Expect more testing in the future eventually, maybe, probably. Another last-minute addition is me talking about this hot sauce advent calendar I found at the store, which is just the coolest thing ever. I'll be starting it a few days after this video comes out, so if you want to see updates on each sauce and how I like it, follow me on Twitter. I'll probably post updates there. Maybe. Speaking of stupid stuff, Min for the Win had left a comment on a video about something regarding Ganondorf. So we all know that this poor guy doesn't have a single projectile to his name, right? Even though having some form of Dead Man's Volley would be really cool. By the way, this concept video is actually like really awesome, I recommend watching it. But yeah, he has only brawler or sword based moves to his name, and yet, here in this victory screen, bam! He has 1 projectile used, listed in his stats, with no items. How though? Well, here's the only thing I did as Ganondorf in that match. Yeah, Ganondorf's Final Smash is apparently a projectile. It's not something you'd think of at first, since visually it's just him charging at someone, but given how Ganondorf's position doesn't actually change after the Final Smash is over, the idea that he's just disappearing and then shooting out a Ganon projectile is at least kind of intuitive, but once you start learning more about this whole thing, it's not really that simple. Also, I guess it takes me like 200 Fox laser shots to charge a Final Smash meter, which you can imagine is really fun. And I can imagine what some of y'all might want me to test in regards to this, but first I really want to drive home just how stupid this is. You might think that, oh, because you're using a Final Smash, which is like an item, that means any Final Smash used is kind of like using an item or something external from yourself and thus is a projectile. Well, for one, filling your Final Smash meter doesn't actually count toward items grabbed, like breaking open a Smash Ball does. But let's just assume that that even is the case and test some other Final Smashes. Bowser's a pretty good one. He's kind of similar to Ganondorf in that he transforms and moves away from wherever his character really is. This is not a projectile. Okay, fine, what about, I guess, Captain Falcon? Is his whole entire car that he spawns a projectile at all? Nope, guess not. Okay, that makes some sense. But what about Mario? He's shooting out a whole wave of fire. Surely this is some kind of projectile? No, it's not. What about PK Starstorm? There's loads of projectiles being rained down from that. Nope, not this either. Mewtwo? He's shooting out a ball of nope. Okay, what about Lynx? No, are you kidding me? He's literally shooting an arrow in the Final Smash. Using neutral special normally counts as a projectile, just so you know, so... Okay, so while as usual I didn't test the entire cast, clearly Final Smashes aren't normally considered projectiles by the game, even ones that really should be. I even asked my friends what they thought and they didn't see anything weird about Ganondorf's Final Smash in the script. Zekbox did give me a hitbox visualization for the Ganon dash, which, I don't know, it doesn't look particularly weird. Though we're not even sure if it's the dash itself that's a projectile or if it's just the move as a whole. See, when I cancel the final smash by quitting the game the moment I activate it, it still gets counted as a projectile in the endgame stats. Something similar can be seen with Link's bow and arrow. Quitting as I charge it also keeps it counted. Now with charged projectiles that you can cancel, like Mewtwo's, charging it in a few frames after releasing it doesn't count as a projectile, but it will count a little bit after it's like officially released. Okay, but yeah, anyways, we get it. Ganondorf's final smash is weird and dumb and stupid, so let's do some supplemental tests. For one, even though it's a projectile, nothing really gets reflected when you, say, have a Franklin badge or anything. Granted, right now we don't really know which part of the final smash is being considered a projectile, but basically the presence of a reflector didn't change anything, which is kinda to be expected, honestly. So what about the shooting attack up spirit effect? The description of this effect is to increase the power of projectile weapons such as bows or guns. Yeah, this final smash is neither gun nor bow, but this is the only spirit I could think of that involves increased projectile damage. So same testing strategy as usual, 2 of these same primary spirits, just one with the shooting attack up spirit and one with no secondary spirit. The attack power should be the same between the 2 outside of those affected by the shooting attack up effect. We can confirm that this works with Fox's laser, which deals 4.1% with the control spirit and 4.5% with the boosted spirit. And the results on the final smash? On the control spirit, it deals 14.2% on the slam hit and 49.7% on the dash hit, with a full 63.9% on the dash when used from farther away. And with the shooting attack up spirit, the slam hit deals 15.6%, with the dash hit dealing 54.6%, and the longer distance one dealing 70.3%. So, very clearly, all numbers are increased, which I was actually incredibly surprised by. So not only does this more or less imply that this shooting attack up spirit affects anything that would be considered a projectile by the endgame stats, but it also confirms that it's not just any specific part of Ganondorf's final smash, but rather the entire thing that's considered a projectile. Also, we can look at Link again, where his neutral special is properly affected, dealing 24.9% with the control spirit and 27.4% with the boosted one, and yet his final smash deals 49.7% between both of the spirit groups. I hate it so much. It is literally a bow and arrow, whatever, okay. Unrelated, but I also thought about this while testing. It's just really funny that hitting opponents with Fox's laser will cancel whatever voice line is happening at the moment. It's kind of like how jumping into water in TF2 cancels voice lines even if the water is like super shallow. Alright, let's stick to the topic of final smashes, with this prompt from my Discord by AlicieLizzie regarding the superstar. Normally when the superstar is active, you get this flashy sparkling glow effect around you, with the classic superstar music playing in the background. However, if you activate a final smash while having this effect, afterwards the sparkling will be gone, as will the music, yet your invincibility will remain, as indicated by the flashing. This is regardless of whether or not you actually land the final smash. However, this doesn't work universally, as if someone else has the superstar effect and you activate a final smash, the music nor the effect goes away. Everything I said before applies for Captain Falcon's final smash, and basically all cutscene final smashes from what I tested. However, this doesn't happen for Mario, Samus, Kirby, or Snake, just to name a few. Conceptually, some of this does make sense. Cutscene final smashes are sort of prepared to shift the focus of everything going on for its duration, whereas final smashes like Mario's can easily happen within the current state of the match. Now, Ganondorf should be the same in that sense, right? But I'm thinking maybe it's because he fully transforms here, compared to the other characters where they mostly just stay the same during the attack. Because Bowser's final smash also gets rid of the star effects and stuff, as does a pseudo cutscene final smash like Pikachu's, where he transforms into a ball of electricity, I suppose. Here's a list that AlicieLizzie made, just to give you a better idea without cluttering the video's runtime anymore. For our usual supplemental tests, if everyone has a superstar effect, including the person using the final smash, it's not like that'll wipe out all effects or music, but rather just the ones of the person who did the final smash. The music will remain due to and in time with the other active superstars. However, if you have one person with a superstar and hit someone else to fully trigger the cutscene, then the effect and music will go away for them, while the invincibility remains. This seems to only work for true cutscene final smashes though, and wouldn't translate over to, say, Ganondorf. And lastly, given that previous test, you might wonder about something like the hammer, which also has its own music to accompany. Normally you wouldn't be able to test it since the person with the effect can't activate a final smash, But using the setup from before, we can see that, yeah, no, activating the cutscene Final Smash will stop it, but it'll also just sort of remove it from existence, which isn't exactly the same thing. Speaking of existing, PogChamp had given me a prompt regarding the lava walls on Norfair. That being how they don't really have hitboxes all the way up, which makes sense in retrospect, but isn't something I really thought of before. This is the case for either of the side lava walls, or the big wave that comes in from behind. If you look in the camera, technically the lava should be hitting you pretty high up, but it seems like the hitbox is more so limited to the very top blast zone. What this does mean is that if you happen to get hit from below while you're up there, you'll just instantly get KO'd. This method of evasion isn't really useful for the side lava falls anyways, even if it's a really funny option, but what about that big background one that covers the whole screen? As it turns out, you don't even need as much height as I've been oversupplying myself here with these bunny hoods and rocket belts. As long as your character even has decent vertical height, it's actually stupid easy to avoid this hit. Like right here, Lucas is barely by the top blast zone and he avoids it completely. So as long as you know the timing for the hit, avoidance is surprisingly brain dead. This is ignoring the fact that you can simply air dodge too, or even just do like any ledge option. Honestly, this is all just making me realize that I considered this obstacle way more threatening when I was a kid than it actually is. That aforementioned timing is kind of stupid though, which I did go over in a recent video. The hit doesn't coincide with when the lava actually hits the stage, but is instead several frames beforehand. Unrelated, but look at me instill the fear of God into this level 1 CPU by just holding down the jab button. Yeah, no, this isn't training mode, and I was just too lazy to grab my second controller, so this is just straight up a CPU. Eventually, the sensory overload wears off and it chooses an option, but I found it surprisingly consistent to just freeze the CPU in place for like 20 seconds. So if for whatever reason you ever need to keep your rabid level 1 CPU in check, it seems to get tamed pretty well by reminding it who's in charge around here. Next, Typical Chris left a comment regarding screen KO animations. For most of the cast, when they slam their stupid faces onto the screen here, they'll just comedically slide right off. It's usually a very smooth slide, where they maintain most of their position and just sort of go down. However, if you see this animation for, say, Bowser, instead of sliding down the screen, he'll noticeably fall off where he splatted, and go down like that instead. This is also the case for King K. Rool. The concept makes sense, these two are the heaviest characters in the game, so the idea that their weight causes them to sort of peel off the screen and fall slightly backwards is a really nice touch that I never noticed before. When looking at Donkey Kong, the character with the next heaviest weight, he kinda moves, but it's mostly normal like the rest of the cast, and King Dedede, who shares DK's weight, is even more normal. So if this is a character weight thing, then it seems like King K. Rool might be the cutoff. Okay, now in the prompt, a certain other character is mentioned too. The Mii Sword Fighter. I'm kinda unsure on this one. It's a bit like DK's where you can notice him slightly move away from the screen after slamming into it, but it's nowhere near as pronounced as Bowser's or King K. Rool's. If this was another example, then that would be super weird given how Mii Sword Fighter has an average weight. But yeah, for me personally, I don't really see this as being the same thing as like Bowser or King K. Rool, but I'll leave that up to you. I think it's a nice detail either way. And lastly for today, Michael420 had a prompt regarding Sephiroth on the Find Me stage. Basically, if you use spirits to boost your attack power, when you use your forward air to stick to the cage, either the cage will swing away without you, leaving you just sort of floating in the air, your sword just stuck to nothing, or if you angle it right, you'll go absolutely flying with the cage, which is really funny in its own right. It's more consistent when you make yourself small, luckily because the power goes down too, but when you're big, you're just way too strong. Like you get stuck in the air Looney Tunes style before gravity even realizes that the thing you should be attached to is in the sky now. There's really not a lot to this prompt other than how it's just kind of funny to picture Sephiroth swinging around and getting stuck in the air like this. Though these size change things did make me wonder something. When Sephiroth gets bigger, so does his sword. So if his normal range for the forward air cling is around here, then with the mushroom boost, it'd be all the way back here. What happens if you're out here and your mushroom runs out? The answer is a pretty underwhelming nothing really. You just sort of get forced out of the cling animation. Though if you do this while you're small, when you regain your normal size, you'll be making out with the wall, which is like way closer than you'd normally be able to be with this kind of move, which is just a little stupid. Okay, that's all the time your balance can cover for, so I'm gonna end the video there. Now that winter is basically here and a lot of my outdoor hobbies kinda suck, I'm gonna try to spend more time doing things inside, and part of that includes something I've been thinking about on and off for a while now. A community Discord. I shut down my public server about 2 years ago now. Same with a TF2 one I ended up making at a similar point. I wasn't in a great headspace to begin with, but I also think that I just wasn't approaching the whole public Discord thing with the right mindset. Like, I don't need to think that everything that happens in a YouTuber Discord immediately reflects on said YouTuber. I feel like basically every big content creator with a Discord has tons of gremlins running loose in them. If I was just a bit more lax about it all, being more freeform and getting rid of said gremlins and not really letting it affect me too much, I think it'd be nice to have that space to interact with the community back again. I'm still going back and forth on this, of course, but I guess just like, let me know down in the comments how interested you are in a public PKBeats server again, or if you think that's better off not happening. In the meantime, I'll keep working on my fun ugly videos and dancing the night away, alongside my glorious and amazing patrons Raighne, Still700, Burbo, SpiderJew, and everyone else with their amazing support. Stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.